Okay. Yeshikoyach to Jack and Ann Mermelstein for sponsoring tonight's Chavura. Should be Le'ili Nishmas Ann's father, Pinchas Ben Yitzchak Isaac. It's Hashem, the Torah should be Schus La'aliyas Nishmasa. So we started last year. We started the third parak of Sanhedrin. The third parak of Sanhedrin discusses the details, the nitty-gritties of a bezdin, of how to form a bezdin, and who has the ability to invalidate in terms of choosing and comprising a bezdin. And then the end of the Mishnah discusses the litigants invalidating the witnesses of the other individuals. So the Gemara goes on, the second chelik of the Gemara, commenting on the Mishnah. Zeh posel dayano shel zeh, v'zeh posel dayano shel zeh. So if you look back in the Mishnah said, Zeh posel dayano shel zeh, v'zeh posel dayano shel zeh. Each person could invalidate the other one's dayan. Divrei Rabbi Meir. V'chachamim omrim emasai b'zman shemevi alein raya shein kroivin o psulim. Chachamim say not so fast. If you have a reason, a good rationale that he's puzzled, that he's invalid for whatever reason, or that he's a karov, so then in a chanami. But if you just want to say, I don't like the way he looks, he doesn't smell good, or he doesn't, he's not a member of my shul, that's not a reason why you could just invalidate him according to Chacham. So the Gemara asks, on the rationale of Rabbi Meir, that you're able to invalidate, at the bottom of the Gemara, how many lines up? 9 lines up from the bottom. Zeh posel dayano shel zeh. In fact, the Gemara kasha kol kimene de posel. He has the ability to just invalidate whoever he wants. Kol kimene de posel dayani amar Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara says, no, you're right. We're not talking about qualified dayanim. Amar Rabbi Yochanan bar kol shebisuria shanu. We're talking about shvacha dayanim. We're talking about judges that really aren't so qualified. They were the arkos, the courts in Syria, which were not very. Rashi says shelo hayu bikiyim b'din Torah. They didn't have an expertise in all the dinim. So such a dayan, Rabbi Meir is of the opinion that you're allowed to invalidate. But if they were experts, so even Rabbi Meir would agree to Rabbanan that you weren't allowed to invalidate. Frak the Gemara kasha, is that really accurate? Hamig diktani seifa. But if you look at the end of the Mishnah, v'chachamim omrim emazay b'zman shemevi and rein laya shem kroivin o psulim. What do the Chachamim retort? The Chachamim say you have to bring a raya or that they're a karov, that they're a apostle. But if they're a mumche, then you have to leave them alone. And the Chachamim are responding to who? Chachamim are responding to Rabbi Meir, which means the implication is that Rabbi Meir was talking about even a mumche. A mumche would be someone that you're able to passel, that the Rabbanan needed to retort about. Says the Gemara, you misunderstood the language. It doesn't mean a real bona fide mumche. So the Gemara says, lost the place. Right? This is what the Mishnah means. If they were kosher, then he is as if he's a mumcha from Bezdin. Rabbanan hold any kosher dayan that doesn't carry a psul with him, that doesn't have any invalidating factor, that is as if he's a mumcha, but not that he was actually a mumcha, that's what they were answering, as if Rabbi Meir would hold you can even invalidate a mumcha. Even Rabbi Meir were in agreement that when it comes to a real bona fide mumcha, you weren't allowed to. So now comes along the Gemara and says, Toshma. Amr lo Rabbi Meir, the Rabbanan said back to Rabbi Meir, Lo hekole menu sheposel dayan shemumcha l'rabim. Again, a similar line. The Brisa says you can't posel a dayan that's a mumcha l'rabim. Once again, it sounds like Rabbi Meir was of the opinion that even if he is a mumcha l'rabim, any dayan is allowed to be invalidated by the other litigant. So the Gemara says, you see that that's Rabbi Meir's opinion. It's not just our kol shebesurya. No, ema loy kol imenu sheposel dayan shehimchu rabim aleim. That the rabim, the tzibor, made him like as if he's an expert, but he isn't actually qualified. And Rabbanan are of the opinion, Rabbi Meir is of the opinion that only a regular dayan and our kol shebesurya, but not an expert, could be invalidated. Tanya nami hachi The Brisa also states, Lo'ilam Pais of Ahoylech, Achi Yikabel of Bezdin, Shemumchler Meir, Dever Meir, V'ha'idim Kamumchler. So the Gemara says, V'holech Achi Yikabel of Bezdin, Shemumchler Rabim, Dever Meir, V'ha'idim Kamumchim Dami. V'amar Rabbi Meir, Zeh Poisel Eidav Shel Zeh, V'zeh Poisel Eidav Shel Zeh. Good. Comes along the Gemara and says, Remeir doesn't allow you to invalidate a mumche? Well, Remeir doesn't only discuss dayanim. Remeir also discusses eidim. And by definition, in aid, there is no hierarchy in aidis. Aidis is, testimony. You saw the case and you didn't see the case. You don't need any expertise to be a witness. So ask the Gemara if Rabbi Meir holds you could passel an aid. So that means even someone who's qualified, you're able to passel. Rabbi Meir held, and everyone across the board you were allowed to passel. From the fact that Rabbi Meir allows you to passel eidim, so then we should infer from there, eidim k'mumchim dami. So even a dayan mumche, even someone who's the most supreme and the most qualified, has the ability to be nifsel. Ha'itmar Allah. So listen to what the Gemara says, mikoyach this question. The Gemara has to backtrack. Ha'itmar Allah Omer Reish Lakish Pe Kodesh Yomar Davar Zeh. Impossible. Says Reish Lakish, a holy mouth can't even learn pshat in the Mishnah, pshuto kamashmo, of what we were saying, that you could passel witnesses. You don't have the ability to passel witnesses, even according to Rabbi Meir, says the Gemara, according to Reish Lakish. Rather what? Tani Eido. Rather, the only person, we're reinterpreting the Mishnah right now. The only situation that Remeir in the world of testimony would allow you to invalidate is just one aid. Tani Eido, and don't say Eidim. Because if it would be Eidim, then you have someone who's perfect, who's like Mumchin, like Dayan and Mumchin, and the litigant does not have the ability to invalidate. If you're dealing with only one aid, so that is a weaker raya, is a weaker level of proof. That's a situation where the litigant, according to Remeir, has the ability to invalidate. Question? Weiter. So listen to what the Gemara says. Eido lamai. What does an aid have a koyach to do? If you're telling me that he can invalidate an aid for mamon, says the Gemara, Rachmana pasle. The Torah says, Al pishnayim edim yakum davar, you need 2 edim to be motzi moment. So what do you need me to invalidate him? He's invalid from the Torah. Rachmana pasle. So what does the Gemara say? If he's coming to be machayev a shvua, which we know, in Eid Echad walks into court and tells you, you owe Adi money, you owe Eitan money, whatever the case is. So now the Torah says I have to take a biblical shvua, mikoyach the Eid Echad. The Eid Echad is now machayev shvua. So Gemara says, hemnu mehemin kebeitrei. Such an individual is believed as 2 Eidim. So that can't be the case that Remeir's allowing you, even if it's 1 Eid Echad, because that's Kibei Trei, says the Gemara, and that's no different than invalidating 2 Eidim. So before we get to the Gemara's answer, I want to focus on the kasha of the Gemara. Our Gemara just said something fascinating. Our Gemara just said that it's not just that the Torah believed in Eid Echad to obligate a shvua. The Gemara in Sanhedrin and Daf Chav Gimel and Aleph tells us that when the Torah is mechayiv in Eid Echad, is now mechayiv and obligates a shvua, the Torah now that puts that into a category of hemnuhu kibei trei. He is believed as if it's 2 witnesses. What does that mean? What does that statement mean? He has the same effect. So I want to pose the following question. And perhaps our Gemara is saying something much deeper and much more than meets the eye.
Is this relative to any type of case? Or
Excellent. It's exactly what I'm driving at. Look at the Gemara in Yevamis and Daf Pei Chesem et Aleph. Pei Chesem et Beis. Gemara is talking about an Eid Echad, which is the whole parak of Isha Rabbah, the 10th parak of Yevamos, talks about the leniency that we allow an Eid Echad to testify in a situation of Iguna, situation where a husband died or a husband was killed, and you don't have the ability to get two Eidim. The Gemara says that you're allowed to marry as long as one Eid gives testimony. You're allowed to get married on Alpi that Eidus. So the Gemara discusses a complicated situation that an Eid Echad came, she got married based on the Eid Echad, and then another Eid Echad came in and we said, we saw your husband. So what is the din in such a situation? The 10th parak talks about all different situations like that, in such a situation. So the Gemara says, Amar Shmuel, Lo shanu ela shaloi machshasa. You see where it is? It's in the wide lines. The wide lines. How many wide lines down? 5 lines down. Amar Shmuel, Lo shanu el shaloi machshasa. Ava machshasa lo teitze. So the Gemara talks about this situation. Rav made a statement that an Eid Echad told her that she can get married, her husband died. She got married. Then another Eid Echad came in and said, your husband's alive. Right? Now the Gemara Shmuel says, it depends on whether or not she is makrish, she tries to contradict this second Eid. I guess it depends how the marriage is going. So if she contradicts the second Eid, so then she could stay married. But if she doesn't contradict, she's maskim to the second Eid, then she should be then she should be teitze. So let's see that again. Amar Shmuel, lo yishanu ela shaloi machshaso, that she should be teitze. Ava machshaso lo teitze, then she shouldn't go out. Says the Gemara, what's the case? B'maya skina, ilema bebeitrei. If it's talking about 2 Eidim, ki machshaso my have. Well, what does it make a difference? She can't go up against 2 Eidim. Ella bechad. It's talking about 1 Eid. Taima de machshaso hashaska seik teitze. So if she would be maskim and she wouldn't contradict the second Eid, she should be teitze. Frek the Gemara kasha and listen to this Gemara. Va'amar ula kol makom shemina Torah Eid echad hare kan shnayim ve'ein dvarav shel echad b'makom shnayim. Listen to what the Gemara just asks. The Gemara says, what happened over here? She had an Eid Echad. The Eid Echad originally was matir her to get married and told her meis bayla. Now she got married and now another Eid is coming to cause her problems. Now the Gemara says, well, is she agreeing? Is she not agreeing? Ask the Gemara kasha, who cares if she's agreeing or she's not agreeing? But the first Eid already what? Already registered. And when the Torah grants the first Eid ne'emonos, we say it's as if Shnei Eidim were made, Heminiaso HaTorah Kishnayim, and now what does Ula say? A fascinating Chiddush of Ula. Even if another Eid Echad comes and contradicts that Eid, now it's viewed to be 1 Babakum Shnayim. And you don't believe the other guy. So the Gemara says, you're right, it's talking about a case that the original people were women, and it wasn't really a testimony that you could say, Heminiaso Torah Kishnayim. But fundamentally, what's going on over here? If you have a heter of Iguna that was registered through 1 Eid, now even though you have another Eid, the same, which we would think should really be 1 against 1, they should cancel each other out, says Ula, that's not the way it works. Once the Torah was matir kol makom shemina Torah hareu kishnayim, it's like 2 against 1, and the first halacha wins over the second halacha, over the second Eid. So here's my kasha. Is that din only a din over here in Eidus Isha? Or is that a din in Kol HaTorah Kula? Now, Ula's statement is found in 3 places in Shas. It's found over here by Eidus Isha, where the Torah gives a leniency of Egla Arufa. It's found by Egla Arufa, where the Torah also gives an Eidus about Eidus Isha, and it's also found by Soita. that an Eid Echad is believed. What? It's by what? They're relevant to Dinei Nefashos, but here you're saying eventually you're going to get killed. Right. But those are the three cases that Ula's statement is said. So here's my kasha. What's the din if an Eid Echad told me B'Yisurin? That piece of meat is chalif. There the Torah also said Eid Echad never B'Yisurin. So now if another Eid comes in and tells me it's no good. So if you look at the Ritva, the Nemuk Yosef on this daf in Peichesim Beis in Yavamis, the Ritva says this din of Ula is limited to what? To these three cases, to Iguna and the cases that Ula said. But there is no halacha said like that in Kol HaTorah Kula. However,
it's not really that the second aid is going up against the first aid. It's going up against the status. The first aid created.
What does that mean? He's going against the first aid. That's you're coming post Ula.
The one aid created a status aid tray, and now one can't undo a status.
Right, but the only reason that status could be tray is because of the Chiddush of Ula. I would never have said a status could be tray. That's a function of Ula. I would never have known that without Ula. That's what Ula is coming to be mechadish for me. So come, look in the first halacha in Yeridea Siman Aleph in Hilchos Shchita. I'm sorry, I just had Rachmanas on Adi and I didn't copy the beginning of the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch starts off saying that a sheichet shechted, and obviously he wants his business to be successful, and he's testifying that his own shechita is kosher. And one guy comes over to the sheichet and says, or to the consumer and says, by the way, that meat is pasul. That meat is treif. So the Mechaber says, Eid echad ba'achasha, lav klub, va'eid atzmo muter lechol, mikano lahaba. So the Mechaber says, it doesn't matter. The sheichet says it, it's kosher. So look at the Taz in the first siman. Shama Marik, Tam Lezeh, what's the reason? The kol makom shemina Torah le'eid echad, have a kishnayim. It's one aid against two. So now you're trying to pass the shchita. This aid is passing. And that's against who? It's against. Look at what the Taz continues in the fourth line. Avani kasafti ba'yisharava kedivrei aritba. Shemevi nimeg Yosef. The dafka be'edis yisha amrinan shu kishnayim. Al b'shari surim have a kechad. Legabe chad ba'akosha. So this is the very issue that we are dealing with right now. Do you extrapolate in Hilchos Shchita, in Hilchos Isser v'Heter, that the din is Kol Makom Shemini Torah Eid Echad Arei Kishnayim? What's the halacha if one aid says it's kosher meat, and the other aid comes in later on and says it's treif meat? So do you say that it's one against one, or do you say that it's one against two? This halacha, yeah, Josh. Like the Taz B'Shem the Ritva. Against
the Ritva.
Oh, you're saying like the Ma'arik.
Like the Ma'arik.
Yeah.
Saying
You're saying the lashon of Ula. Kol makom shemin Torah eid echad. So I hear what you're saying. So the only thing I could say to you is, it's true. There's ne'amonis and isurin for an eid echad. It is kol makom shemin Torah. But kind of what Eitan was saying, the chiddush of Ula by Iguna is that everyone agrees that by Iguna you really need two Eidim. So what was the chiddush HaTorah? What did the Torah really say? Now we have to learn Yavamis to figure out how the Gemara knew this. Whatever the direction is, the Gemara said you're allowed to rely on one Eid Echad. But that is really a tremendous chiddush. And now the Torah is replacing with one aid for whichever direction they have. They're replacing the halacha and the necessity for two eidim. When it comes to Yisurim, I never necessitated two eidim. So maybe Ula, in defense of the Ritva, you could say, what he means by Kol Makom Shemina Torah Eid Echad means Hemina Torah in Hilchos Eidus, where I need Takashnayim, and I was lenient and I had a Giloy to need one. Perhaps that would be the. So what would be the halacha, Rabbi Isai, more close to home? Hilchos Nezikin. What would be the halacha in the area of Shvuah? What's the halacha in the following case? A person comes in and says, like I said, I owe Edi money and Eid Echad is mechayev me shvua, because they say I owe money. Now I bring another Eid, what's called an Eid Misayeya, which the Rishonim discussed in the beginning about Metzia, to pater me from a shvua. Does that work to now cancel the chi of shvua that the Eid Echad originally originated on me, an obligation on me? Or do you say no? Since the Eid Echad that came originally is mechayev a shvua, and now we apply what? Ula's principle of kol makom she'mina Torah Eid Echad hareu kishnayim. So now an Eid Echad to come to pater, you can't go up against two Eidim. This Eid is already registered. The chi of shvua is already like as if it's two Eidim. So in the Ktzos that I have over here in Siman Pei Zayin, he quotes a Trumas Hadeshin that discusses this very issue. He starts off, even if there's a bona fide shvua, skip to the next paragraph. Alpha the Kvarnasa Maisu Pasca based in Shvua, Loyamin in Bizep, Komakum Shemina Turek, Haria Krishnayim, who could trade. Abba Svarzuk, Kvarnofa Machlekes Birshonim, Vubachaticha Safik, Chelev Sakiv Shuman, the Eidech Neman Bay, Lomer Vade Chelev o Vade Shuman, Hechada by Eidech Mitchilev Omer Shu Chelev, Akar by Eid Shein of Omer Shuman, Oepchi Yamamina Bay, Komakum Shemina Turek, Eidech Haria Krishnayim. In a Shin Neman, Vaimenuku Yosef, Isha Rabba, exactly the Ritva that we're talking about. Ubishach Yoredeya says the Ksos, Simin Kov Zayin, Sham Echriya de Gambezek, Kol Makom Shinitor, Edechad, Hareu Kishnayim. Ksos points out that the Shach on this very issue, whether or not this is halach in Kol Torah Kula, contradicts himself. In the halachos of Shvua, which is Siman Pei Zayin, he says, no, it's one against one. They cancel each other out. You don't say that the chi of shvua exists just because of the original aid being mechayev shvua. But in Isser Veheter, Safik Shuman, Safik Chelev, whether it's kosher or treif, the Shach there says you do say Kol Makom She'mina Torah Eid Echad by Yisurin if the Eid Echad came in and he's Kishnayim, and the second aid is not believed, more similar to like the Maharik that we saw in Hilchos Shchita. So Rabbi say, why is this relevant to us? Perhaps this very issue is all coming out of our language of the Gemara. The Gemara says you don't have the ability to invalidate an aid if he's coming to be mechayev a shvua. Why? Says the Gemara, fascinating language. Because when it comes to shvua, the Torah was mamin and eid echad ketrei. Sounds like what? Sounds like this is a din not only in Eidus Isha in the Sugyas and Yavamis. Sounds like this is a din in Kol Torah Kula, the Pashup Shad in the Gemara is. That the Torah gave Ne'emonis to an Eid Echad B'Shvua, Hareu Kishnayim. And now perhaps, one could argue based on this Gemara, if you have an aid that's going to exempt you from the Shvua, to now counter the original aid, maybe you wouldn't say that so fast. Because the first one registered as if he had two Eidim. So this language of the Gemara might be now discussing this very issue, whether or not we can extrapolate Ula's din to be a din in Kol Torah Kula. Now, the truth is, I'm in agreement that the Ritva himself said that it doesn't apply to Kol Torah Kula. And the Ritva needs to be able to read our Gemara. So how would he read the Gemara that says, Kol Makom Shemini Torah, that says, Eid Echad B'Shvua is not just believed, but he believed Kebei Trey. What does that mean? So, very quickly, and then we'll go weiter. We discussed months ago, if not years ago, the following issue. There is the brother of the Ktzos HaChoshen. His name was the Trumas Hakri. His sefer was named the Trumas Hakri. So he had the following chiddush. The Gemara tells us when a person takes a shvuah, what happens if he doesn't have the ability to be believed in a shvuah? He's not a trustworthy person. So now you have a din Torah. The Torah says the way you should resolve this issue is take a shvuah so we know whether or not you're telling the truth or not. But the problem is, this guy lies all the time. So he's not believed. He already has a record. He's not believed with his shvuah. So shvuah is not going to do anything. So Gemara in Shavuos tells us what to do in such a situation. Mitoich she'eni yachol shava mishalim. From the fact that he's not able to take a shvuah, he now pays. So what's the nature of that din? Mitoich she'eni yachol l'shava mishal. It's a fascinating halacha. Is it really that you have to take a shvuah, and that's really the chiyuv that exists, and because the regular rules and regulations can't apply to you, so we give you a knas and we make you pay because we have no other option? Or perhaps, says the Trumas Akri, it works in the opposite direction. Really, when an Eid Echad comes and tells you that you owe him money, really, he's believed. He's believed, and you should really have to pay. Just the Torah had a chiddush. What did the Torah say? Says the Trumas Akri, we give you an opt-out. What's your opt-out? Your opt-out is to take a shvuah. So really, the chiyuv emanates to be a chiyuv mamon. But when there's only an Eid Echad, there's an opt-out. If there's two Eidim, there's no opt-out. The chiddush HaTorah is with an Eid Echad, there's an opt-out. So if you look at it like that, what happens when what? When I don't have the opportunity to opt out, so then the original halacha exists, which means mishalim. So now I have a chiyuv mamon. This might affect a lot of different sugyas of how you view an Eid Echad for Shvuah. Can amigo apply? Cannot? Affects a lot of different situations and different sugyas that the Rishonim discuss. How to understand this nature of an Eid Echad that's come l'Shvuah. Is he that he's originally coming to be Mechayev a Shvuah, and now we just give you a punishment when you can't take a Shvuah that you have to pay? Or no, he's really Mechayev Mamon, because that's what he said. Just the Torah says, since he's only one Eid, so therefore what? We give you an opt-out. Instead of paying, you could now take a Shvuah. But if you can't, so then the original halacha applies. So then what? Perhaps that's exactly what our Gemara is saying. You think that you can invalidate an Eid Echad by Shvuah, says the Gemara. So again, our first pshat in the Gemara was what? This is Ula's din. Ula's din is a din in Kol HaTorah Kula. It applies by Yisr V'Heter, it applies by Shvuos, and it applies by Eidus Isha. It's not just an Eidus Isha like the Ritva told us in Yavamas. It's a din Kebei Trey, and therefore if one aid tries to argue with that original aid, we don't believe him. It's like 1 against 2. Now, we said, but how's the Ritva going to read our Gemara? Perhaps the Ritva is going to read our Gemara a little differently. When the Gemara, the Ritva perhaps will suggest, like the Trumas Akri, perhaps you can learn the Gemara like that. When an Eid Echad is Mechayev Shvuah, it's not directly that he's Mechayev Shvuah. It's really that he's Mechayev Mamon. He's Haminu Bo Kibei Trey. He has the capacity of 2 Eidim. Really, you should have to pay. Just what? The Torah was Mechades, since he's only way an Eid Echad, there's an opt-out. But fundamentally, what is the capacity of this aid? Fundamentally, the capacity of this aid is what? Is to be Mechayev Mamon. And you should really be Chayev. And that, says the Trumas Akri, that is the nature of the halacha of Mitoich She'eni Yachol L'Shava. We go to the default. We go back to the original halacha. Mishalem. So if so, says the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Eid Echad L'Shvuah. You're going to invalidate an Eid Echad for Shvuah. That's Kebei Trey. That is like a person who has the ability, theoretically, to be Mechayev Mamon. That's mamish like 2 Eidim in a situation where you can't pay. If so, then the Gemara says you should not have the capacity to invalidate this aid. So 2, perhaps, approaches how to understand the Gemara's language of saying that this person, this litigant, should not be able to invalidate an Eid Echad, even in the case of Shvuah, because an Eid Echad for a Shvuah is Heminu Kibei Trey. Good. So the Gemara says, you're right. It can't be a case of Shvuah, that's where I'm invalidating the one Eid. La'olam l'mamon. It's talking about a regular case of Mamon. If it's Mamon, so what do you mean? 1 Eid is nothing for Mamon. So Gemara says, Lo tzricha, fascinating Gemara. Lo tzricha de kible alei kebei trei. You have to understand that when it comes to the world of Dinei Mamonis and the court system, if I sign on the dotted line, whatever I obligate myself to, I'm chayev to. So even if a person is not sufficient according to the halachic requirements, as long as I say, I accept whatever this person says, as if he's 2 Eidim, that's chayev. So I'm now mechayev myself to accept this witness, kebei trei. I accepted him as if he was 2 Eidim. So the Gemara says, "My kamashmalon, the matzi haderbei." So the Gemara says, so what's the chiddush of our Mishnah? Reb Meir holds that you could still be chayzer in what you accepted, and you don't have to hold to what you committed to. You're allowed to be chayzer, and Rabbanon hold you're not allowed to be chayzer. That's the machlokes Tanoim. So Gemara asks, Tanina, we already have a Mishnah for this. Amr lo, he said to him, the two litigants gathered together, and they say, listen to this. Nemon alai abba, even your father has the ability to resolve our disputes and to be our judge. Apostle, a karov. Neman alai avicha, I will accept your father. The other litigant says to the other litigant, Neman alai gimel roye baker. I will accept people who don't know any halacha, and they're going to think about whatever they decide arbitrarily to be the din. I'll accept them. The people who are herding the cattle. Reb Meir Omer Yachol Achzerbo. So what's the Gemara's kasha? Gemara's kasha is you already have a Mishnah telling you this din. So why, if you're telling us that the whole issue of the Mishnah of Eido is one aid, that it was Neman Kibei Trey, you already have the din by Abba Avicha and Gimel Roi Bakr. That Reb Meir says you could be chayzer, and Rabbanan say you can't be chayzer, and therefore they're saying you can't passel the other guy because you have to stick to what you committed to. Yeah. What do you mean?
In other words, if you could be somech on an eid echad, then why even have it?
You could only be somech on an eid echad where they signed on a contract that they committed to this. For some reason, these guys in the beginning of their contract, they said this guy is going to be the guy who resolves all our issues, and I believe him. Whatever he says, even though for Dine Mamanis, it has to be upfront and a signed contract, and this is all based on Kabbalahs. We accepted this upon ourselves. Otherwise, they're invalid.
Are we allowed to go in their own hands like that?
So the Gemara says in Baba Basra, "B'davar sheb'mamon kol milsa t'nol kayim." Any person that's masna, the concept of masna al mashakasav b'Torah, to go against the dinei Torah, doesn't apply when it comes to dinei mamanis, and you have the ability to decide whatever contract you want in terms of dinei mamanis. That's a good question. The original Kabbalah to sign a contract, probably. V'amar Rav Dimi b'reider Rav Nachman b'reider Rav Yosef k'goin dekable alei bechad. So Rav Dimi b'reider Rav Yosef said this case of Neman alai Abba, where you're even accepting the krovim, you're even accepting the family members, that's a situation where you accepted them bechad. So then it's a repetition. We know this already for the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, listen, the Gemara says tzricha. Di tana Abba v'avicha. No, I need both cases. What does it mean? I need the case of your father, and I need the case of our Mishnah. Di tana, what? Abba v'avicha. Right? What's the case? So then what? Chazal la'alma. Aval chad kibei trei. De la'alma loy chazi. Eima moide le Rabbi Meir. So listen to what the Gemara says. Gemara says you don't know both of these halachas. Let's chazer again. What's the debate between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim in the Mishnah? I accepted one aid as if he's two. So the Gemara says that is different than the case of Abba v'avicha, because Abba v'avicha, I'm only accepting him as one. The chiddush is that I'm accepting someone who's a relative, but he's still going to be one of two. There's going to be someone who has to link up with him. So says the Gemara, you don't know and you can't infer the issue of Ramei Rabbanon from there to our Mishnah where you're accepting one to be two. Why? What's the difference? Says the Gemara, because by Abba v'avicha, he's chazu la'alma, which means it's only a relationship issue. For my case, he's apostle aid. So I accepted him to be another aid to join with someone else, and that was part of our Kabbalah before the case. But in the case of our Mishnah, where you're accepting one instead of two, that's not even chazul la'alma. That's against all Deinei Torah. You don't need two Eidim anymore. I don't need two Eidim. I accept one instead of two. That's something that I wouldn't have known from the case of Abba v'Avicha, and therefore I need to teach the separate chiddush of the Mishnah that Reb Meir still holds that I have the ability to retract in a situation. Reb Meir and Rabbanan have machlokas whether or not I can retract, both in the situation of what? Of where I accepted one as two, and not only in the situation where I accepted my father or his father, because by there, that's a situation where he is chazul alman. I would have thought that Rabbi Meir does not agree that I could be choser in such a case. Since he's chazul alma, he's fit for other cases, so he's more kosher. Maybe Rabbi Meir would hold in such a situation, you're not able to be choser, and that is something that's linked in, and you can't backtrack from such a situation. Now, the problem is, the Gemara, again, is differentiating between being chazul alma or not being chazul alma. So that makes very well sense. Let's look back at the bottom of Chav Gimel Amud Aleph by Abba v'Avicha. My father, your father, those are people that are totally kosher witnesses in other situations, as long as they're not related. But ask the Ran, what about Gimel Roe Bakar? Gimel Roe Bakar are people that are invalid. That's not someone who chazul alma. So it contradicts what the Gemara says, that the differentiating factor between this machlokes Tanoim, Reb Meir and Chachamim, and the machlokes Reb Meir and Chachamim fits well within Abba v'Avicha, but it doesn't fit well with the third category of Gimel Roe Bakar, which seems to be invalidating. It seems to be something that's a function of a psul.
Who says they're talking about the din and not about the yanim? Otherwise, why is he putting Gimel Roe Bakar there?
Well, it would be both about it. It would be both for the Eidim and the Dayanim. Kabbalah works by both.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be for both.
No, but if you're talking about if the Gemara is talking here about Dayanim, you need to assume you cannot infer from that anything about Ed Echad or two Edim. It's
well,
I
again,
think you can read it in such a way that it's.
No, I'm saying the Gemara says you're asking on the Gemara's kasha.
Yeah,
The Gemara says lo tzricha dekibla leika betre.
I think they're talking about Dayanim, not why.
Fine, but the Gemara assumes that it wasn't specifically Dayanim, because then the Gemara wouldn't ask Tanina. The Gemara says what you just said that you could be Makabel Eidim. Gemara says we learned that in the Mishnah. So when the Bryce over there is talking about Bein La Eidim, Bein La Dayanim, otherwise the Gemara would have never had a contradiction. It's specifically Dayanim by what? Neman alai b'dayanim kamayrim midiktani gimel roi bakar. So what's the stira? I mean, otherwise you can't read the Gemara. The Gemara says lo tzucha dekibla le betray. So the Gemara says my kamashmalan. The matzi haderbe tanina.
They already had a machlokas that you can be kabel on themselves. Bein b'dayan, bein b'eidim.
Right, that's the assumption of the Gemara, right? That it's bein be'edim, bein b'dayanim. But you're pointing out that Rashi says dafka.
No, I'm saying bein b'eidim, which was the first case, bein b'dayanim, which is the proof case, the tanina. If we're assuming that there should be no difference, so let's go bring a case.
But why can't the Gemara, according to you, why can't the Gemara answer that this case was just a raya for dayanim? But how do I know that Reb Meir Chachamim? How do I know about the machlekes Reb Meir Chachamim by edim? Right, but I think the assumption of the Gemara is, from the fact that the Gemara is saying, from the beginning of the Gemara is interchanging Eidim and Dayanim and is not differentiated between the two. Adrabah, the Gemara says the din of Mumcha is learnt out by Dayanim from Eidim. So you see that the Gemara is interchanging between the two, and I don't think that even the Neman Alei, it's interesting what you're pointing out, that Rashi says Dafka by Dayanim. Yeah, the Mishnah happens to say Neman Alai Abba, Neman Alai Vicha is talking about Dayanim, but I think the assumption of the Gemara is that we would not differentiate between Eidim or Dayanim in terms of this halacha of Kabbalah. Otherwise, the whole Shaka B'Tarya doesn't make sense. Fine. So the Gemara says Chazal Alma. So the Ran answers. You have to say that Gimel Roi Bakar, although they're not knowledgeable, they are still what's called in the Gemara Chazal Alma. What do you mean the Chazal Alma? But there's something that they're invalid. They're not knowledgeable. So the Ran says, yeah, a person that's not knowledgeable could very easily learn and fill in that chisaron, and is not considered in someone like one instead of two. That's an invalid case. Since that's something that could very easily change, that they could now learn the halachos and now longer be Gimel Roi Bakr, says the Ran, you have to say, in order to read the Gemara, you have to say that that is what's called in the category of Chazul Alma, and therefore that would be like Abba V'Avicha, that in another situation where they're not a relative, they're not going to be invalid. And so too Gimel Roi Bakr, although they're more of a chisaron, that's going to be considered someone that is Chazul Alma, says the Ran, you need to say in order to read the Gemara. So we have a few minutes left. We have to introduce the next Gemara. And this is, the next Gemara I'm just introducing is a fascinating, fascinating Gemara. The Gemara introduces a very important inyan that we'll hopefully talk about next shir, which is the halacha, which is not going to be next week, it's going to be in 2 weeks because of Hanukkah. So the Gemara says the following. Let's read the Gemara. So then the Gemara just finishes off. Yashmin and Baha Kamar of Meir. Maybe if I would only sit over here, so then in that Rabbi Meir holds you could be choser. Avabahi ema moidelu rabbanan. But in the case of one aid acting as two, maybe even Rabbi Meir would. In a case where it's just one and it's not one acting as two, maybe even Rabbi Meir would agree that you can't be choser like Rabbanan tzricha. So the Gemara says, Hamidiktani Reisha Dayana V'Seifa Eidav Amad Dafkatani Amar Blazer Beba Hu Ve'acher Leposlan. Ask the Gemara, you've been suggesting to me that the only time you can invalidate an aid is if he's what? He's one aid. And we're suggesting now, what does that mean? It means the one aid is standing, and we accepted on our contract that the one aid would replace that and be like two aidim. And it was kablu alayu kebei trei. We accepted him as if he was two, and that's the case for Meir and Rabbanan. Whether or not you could be chayzer from your Kabbalah or not, that's the machlekes in the Mishnah if you could passel or not. Says the Gemara, can't be. V'amediktani reisha dayano v'seifa edav alma dafka ktani. Sounds like it was Belashon Rabbim, that there were two edim that you were passeling, that you were invalidating. Not Eido, like the Gemara said on Amud Aleph, but you're rather invalidating two Eidim. Alma Dafka Ktani, it means that Dafka meant two Eidim. Amar Rabbi Lazar, Bebahu Va'acher Leposlan. You're right. Scratch everything we've said. We're not invalidating one aid. I'm not saying to scratch the Chidushim that we came out with. Could be that everything we said is that an Eid Echad is Kishnayim, or that an Eid Echad has come to be Mechayev Mammon instead of being Mechayev Shvua. Could be all those Chidushim are true. But that's not Pshat in the Mishnah. Pshat in the Mishnah is that you're actually invalidating two Eidim. How am I invalidating two Eidim? I'm just one guy. Says the Gemara, no. B'bahu v'acher leposlan. He comes with another guy and he says, those Eidim that this other litigant chose, they're puzzle. They're invalid. So anyone who's involved in a case should obviously ask the next kasha of the Gemara. You are going to join with another aid to invalidate the other two witnesses, Rabbi Yisai, without reading the next word. What's the Gemara's kasha? Vaha? Vaha? Nogeya. Nogeya be'edazu. I have a court case that I'm about to lose. There are witnesses that are saying that I'm chayiv money, right? So now what do? There are two witnesses. So what do? I'm going to lose. So I say, Eitan, come here. Testify with me that these two witnesses are puzzle. Of course you're going to be made like that. That's absul. That's Nogeya be'edus. How do you have the right in a court case against you to invalidate these two witnesses? And that's what the pshat in the Mishnah that we're saying. Frak the Gemara Nogeya be'edusu. So the Gemara says, Amarav Achbar Rav Ika Kagoin Shakira Alav Irer. No, he starts saying a story that there's problems in this person's history and his family. So Gemara says, Ira demai. If you're arousing and making a claim that what? He's a Gazlan, Kol Kamine. Again, who are you to say that he's a Gazlan? Nogeya be'edasi. Ela ir de pagam mishpacha. No, I say that what? That his father is an eved or whatever. He has a psul in the mishpacha that makes him a puzzle witness. So what? So therefore what? Who cares what the story you made? Lamaisa, you're nogea be'edus. Rabbi say the next year we need to discuss what is the invalidating factor of being nogea be'edus. Perhaps that can shed light on what the Gemara is saying, and perhaps that will really open up sugyos throughout Shas in terms of understanding the psul, which is a very intuitive psul, that you should not be able to testify in situations where you have a bias and you have what to gain from your edus. This is the main Gemara that discusses this halacha of nogea be'edus.